We need to talk about Jackson Arnold and his return to Norman as the starting quarterback at Auburn. Unpack, well, what Auburn fans seem to think Jackson Arnold is in comparison to John Mateer, and Oklahoma's biggest problem so far this season that could get fixed against Jackson Arnold. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If you're into that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that John Mateer and Jackson Arnold are the same? Because there are some Auburn fans who somehow believe that Jackson Arnold and John Mateer are basically the same player. And to be kind to them, they're talking about Jackson Arnold's ability to make plays with his legs. They're talking about John Mateer's ability to make plays with his legs. They're talking about those guys being the most dynamic and athletic guys on the football field. Difference is John Mateer has Oklahoma off to a really great start, beating a top 25 team in the first couple of weeks of the season. Jackson Arnold needed to get to the Alabama game before that could happen. And even then, he's not doing it with his leg or with his arm. He's doing it with his legs. Jackson Arnold's only thrown for 501 yards this year. And I realized that he's played South Alabama, Ball State, and Baylor. But he also hasn't thrown any interceptions. And that's never been really a problem for him. He threw 3 interceptions last year. He threw 3 against Arizona alone. But the problem for him was putting the ball on the floor and then turn the ball over on first down, and even more so, just not seeing the offense and operating with the kind of efficiency that Oklahoma fans would expect. John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle seemed to be what we thought that Jackson Arnold was going to be with Seth Littrell, but that's just not how it went. Transfers to Auburn, and Hugh Freeze gets him a couple of $1 million wide receivers in Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton and a dynamic tailback in Jeremiah Cobb, and they're going to bring all of that in DJ Durkin's defense to Oklahoma for both first SEC competition. Now, the thing that I find fascinating about this is Oklahoma's got number 13 team in the country, and it has been really great at stopping people from scoring. But the bugaboo for the team, really, not just the defense, is that the defense hasn't made any takeaways, and that needs to change. And Brent Venables has said as much. Like his quote was, "How disgusting is that?" And we've been preaching it. We start every practice with turnover circuit. They'll come if we get our brains beat in and we didn't have any turnovers. I wouldn't like any of it, but we got to do a better job because that's going to be a really important part as we jump into SEC play here this week. And nobody knows about Jackson Arnold's ball handling issues better than Oklahoma does. And I'm sure that is how they've gone into this week. It is, hey, we know what the pressure point is for this quarterback. We know that if we send more than he can see, or if we send 5 and they got, or we send 5 and they only got 4 to block, or we send 6, we send 7, we speed him up, it'll be okay. Nobody's going to send 7, right? I mean, I wouldn't send 7. I'd send 6, but I'd send 6 most of the time. Anyway, I think the point to raise here is that Brent Venables knows what Jackson Arnold can do. And he also knows what Hugh Freeze's offense can do. If Oklahoma is going to get beat by Auburn, it will be in the run game by Auburn, right? It'll be a combination of Jeremiah Cobb running free like Justice Haynes did with Michigan. And it'll be Jackson Arnold bailing them out of 3rd and long situations with his legs when the play breaks down. I doubt it will be with the kind of passing performance that he had against Arizona because we haven't seen that guy since the Arizona game in 2023. I'm still waiting on that guy to throw for 300 yards. I'm still waiting on that guy to throw for 280 yards, right? I get that he's not throwing any interceptions, and I get that he's thrown 3 TDs, but we're not talking about the same caliber of player right now when we talk about John Mateer and Jackson Arnold. I think that Jackson Arnold got a bad rep at Oklahoma because of how poorly he played, and I think people would have like to have seen him stick it out. Now, I wouldn't have stuck it out. I think I would have gone to the portal too because you're going to recruit somebody and you're probably going to tell me, hey, look, we're going to give this guy another look. If you want to stay, that's up to you. But when Auburn says, hey, we got a home for you and you get to play SEC football and you're probably going to end up being the starting quarterback, that's what you go do. And I think by and large, most Oklahoma fans wish Jackson Arnold great success, just not this weekend. Like that's all there is to it. There isn't the kind of animosity for him as a player I think other SEC fans think there is. I think it's more like we expected to be as good as everybody else in the SEC, and that's just not what Oklahoma was able to do. It's more like Oklahoma was embarrassed in the way that they lost that Tennessee game. A game that if you watch tape back, they probably win if he can hold on to the football and they can score inside the high red zone. That's really what did them in. The defense was good enough to win that game against Tennessee last year, and then Tennessee got beat by Arkansas. South Carolina beat the brakes off of Oklahoma in large part because Jackson Arnold couldn't do anything. And then a game that Oklahoma had won against Missouri, he put the ball on the floor. The game where he took care of the football, he outplayed Jalen Milroe, right? That's a high watermark. That's what he's capable of as a quarterback. And I think Oklahoma fans just wanted to see that guy week in and week out. And the LSU game where OU got absolutely destroyed didn't help anybody either. Michael Hawkins is still at Oklahoma, but you can see the difference, right? Michael Hawkins, who got to start over Jackson Arnold because he looked so much better at the end of the Tennessee game. But when you watch Michael Hawkins go in mop-up time, you can see the difference between him and John Mateer. And I think that is the comparison you should be making if you are really trying to give these guys a good look. And then take a look at what John Mateer was able to do last year. 3,000 yards passing, 800 yards on the ground. He could be another 3,000, 1,000 guy this year. He's averaging better than 300 yards of offense a game. And for him and Oklahoma, it's about keeping him safe. It's about making sure that he can play every single game that OU plays this season. And that could be as many as 16. So you want him to protect his body. You want him to get out of bounds. And I think the same thing is true for Hugh Freeze and Auburn. I think the difference, though, is Hugh Freeze really wants to push the ball down the field. He really likes to take advantage of the vertical passing game, and Jackson hasn't been able to do that just yet. And to try to do that against Oklahoma might not be what you want to do, right? Especially just leaning into, you might be in a Josh Heupel experience this year if you're Hugh Freeze, meaning match protect on pass plays and get your run game going, let Jeremiah Cobb and Jackson Arnold beat people up that way. I just don't know if he's got enough discipline to really form the offense around what his quarterback can do best. And sometimes that's just protecting him from himself, which is to not put more than 3 guys out in patterns and try to just do it twice with the 2 guys on the outside and see if you can't get that run game going to where you can get single coverage for Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton and then give them jump balls to go get. I think that's a good way for Auburn to go about its season. I just don't think that's a good way to beat Oklahoma or ranked competition. And that is really what they're up against. So if Jackson Arnold turned into John Mateer, that'd be great. I think if he turned into Lenore Sellers, that'd be great. But he's got the capacity to do what DJ Lagway did last week. Just won't be throwing interceptions. He'll be putting the ball on the floor, right? Because at some point, you really do have to recognize what kind of player he is in college and not the kind of player he was in high school. National Gatorade Player of the Year in high school has been so-so to bad as a starter in the SEC.